Warning, this video will contain small spoilers for the entire Resident Evil franchise, and major spoilers, or literally everything that happens in Resident Evil 1. There is also, I guess, some small spoilers for some select Scooby-Doo shows, if you really care about that either. Anyway, you've been warned. Resident Evil is the highest-selling horror video game franchise ever, and the 11th highest-selling video game franchise, period. And it's not particularly hard to see why. It checks all the boxes. Zombies, mutant freaks, limited resources, plot twists, gore, creepy atmosphere, and memorable characters that fulfill your every need. Whether it be for your daddy issues, mommy issues, or of course, your Boulder issues. Resident Evil supplies them all. And let us not forget, an integral part of Resident Evil is the setting. From the confines of the Spencer Mansion, to the streets of Raccoon City, to the various rural European villages for some reason, the Resident Evil settings are all memorable pieces of the pie. But what I want to focus on is one setting in particular, the one where it all started. The Spencer Mansion. It's a gaming classic that is remembered for its horrifying components. The winding hallways, the dilapidated rooms, the highly inconvenient puzzles to access everyday parts of the house, and the fact that there is only one toilet in the entire mansion. And no doubt the mansion and the events of the game made a lot of people ask a particular question. What would I do in this situation? Now, of course, if you're a sane person who lives an average life, the answer is most realistically, die. But the fact that like 10% of Americans think that they could fistfight a grizzly bear, I have a feeling most people didn't go for the boring and probable answer. Instead, I'm sure they daydreamed about fighting off the zombies, solving the puzzles, and sticking it to the tyrant, all while looking badass. And while that's all fine and good, I had a different question. You see, I always grew up watching Scooby-Doo, a show where a small group frequently enters haunted or abandoned buildings to investigate things. So, naturally, when I saw the Spencer Mansion in all its survival horror glory, I asked, how would Mystery Inc. handle the events of Resident Evil? Before we can answer this question, we need to set down some ground rules. Firstly, I'll be basing this off the 2015 remaster of the 2002 remake of the original Resident Evil game. It's easily accessible on Steam, and it is the most canon-telling of the events of Resident Evil 1 that we have. Apologies to all you 1996 purists out there. Second, is that the gang has to go through all the same major events of the story as Jill and Chris, meaning they will have to go through all the same boss fights, choose whether or not to save Barry, get poisoned if hit by Yawn and have to find the serum, and of course, figure out that Wesker is the bad guy. Anything the two protagonists had to do, the gang will also have to. It would be boring just to say they turned around and went home, or to say that they could climb into the room locked behind the emblem key from the open window. Third is that we will be basing things off a normal difficulty run, meaning any items that Jill and Chris would get and which puzzles they have to solve would be the same as well. Also, a brief side note. We're going with the assumption that all the members of Mystery Inc. have the mental fortitude to fire guns, and not just break down crying at the sight of the undead. They will not get STARS training or anything like that, but they will get the cast's inexplicable resistance to the T-virus, so that this doesn't end with, they get bit once and therefore are dead. Fourth, and finally, the astute of you will have noticed that there are two conflicting storylines of the game, and that different events happen based off who you play as. To solve that, I'll be declaring a classic split up and look for clues, where Fred, Velma, and Daphne will be Jill's counterpart, and Shaggy and Scooby will be doing the Chris route. More on that later. For now, with the rules out of the way, it's time to get to know our participants. Here I will trigger every shonen anime enjoyer's wet dream, and power scale the members of Mystery Inc. Sort of. I will be giving each member a ranking out of 10 in 4 separate stats, each of them representing different aspects of the game. Strength will affect how well they would be able to handle the larger weapons with more recoil, meaning the shotgun, assault shotgun, grenade launcher, and magnum. It will also have an effect on how many hits that they can take. Dexterity will affect how effective they are with smaller weapons and overall aim, like the knife, handgun, self-defense gun, and again, the magnum. Dexterity will also affect how many inventory slots they have access to. My thinking is that having a higher dex allows for better packing and orientation of items. Intelligence will affect how well they'll be able to solve the puzzles and figure out the layout of the mansion. It will also affect their abilities to find bonus items, such as daggers, extra ammo, and maps. Speed will affect how fast they can move, and how well they'd be able to dodge threats. That's pretty much it. There's not much else I can say about speed. Now, to clarify, I will be mixing and matching each character from different shows and movies to get a weird conglomerate version of each of them, and I will be taking more broad and average themes into account rather than specific feats. Got it? Great. Now, let's start with Fred Jones. Fred is a wise leader and a master of traps. Whether it be making them, recognizing them, or escaping them, Fred is an elite at anything trap-related. And although he can be emotionally dumb at times, giving him a himbo vibe, his actual intelligence is not to be underestimated, as he has shown good managerial skills, and has been able to pick up on clues and information at excellent rates. Plus, in order to make traps as elaborate as he does in such a short amount of time, you have to have superior knowledge of mathematics and physics. Not to mention, his DIY upgrades of the mystery machine show understanding of mechanical engineering. His overall physical strength and speed are above average as well. As a jock, he would have good strength and conditioning. He is also the go-to driver for the mystery machine, and can compete at a professional racing level, proving he has high dexterity and good reaction time. He is also likely the bravest of the group, and capable of defending himself, though his offensive power can be somewhat lacking. Also, he is the nephew of Bobby Flay. That has no bearing on his stats, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Overall, his stats would be as follows: Strength, 6. Dexterity, 7. Intelligence, 8. Speed, 6. Next up is Daphne Blake. Daphne has been interpreted in many different ways over the 57 years of her existence. Sometimes she is nothing more than a damsel in distress, constantly falling into traps or getting kidnapped. Other times, she is an elite martial artist and MacGyvering badass. I have chosen to interpret her as the following. Daphne is very emotionally intelligent and knows when something is wrong with one member of the gang and generally how to fix it. She is very good at thinking on the fly and very capable of adapting to unexpected situations. She can pick locks, disguise herself and others, can play instruments, and will look good while doing it. She is an elite martial artist. Originally starting it as something for self-defense, it quickly grew into a formidable weapon. She has also shown incredible acrobatic ability and marksmanship. Although she is not dumb, it can't be said that she is particularly bright compared to her fellow members of Mystery Incorporated when it comes to book smarts, and is also prone to lapses of environmental awareness, often leaving her in bad situations and falling into traps. Overall, her stats are as such: Strength, 6. Dexterity, 9. Intelligence, 6. Speed, 5. Rounding out our Jill counterparts is Velma Dinkley. Velma is incredibly smart. In fact, she is far smarter than any character in the Resident Evil franchise, even Wesker. Highball estimates put her at levels around the likes of Batman, who has done some rather extraordinary feats, while even lowballing her puts her at a level of someone with few equals. She won a science competition by creating a robot dog capable of being a bed, making popcorn, and withstanding at least 3 tons of weight on a retractable shield, for crying out loud. She is also very aware of details and easily capable of sussing out anything suspicious, managing to keep herself out of trouble most times. Also, she was literally taught by Merlin. Name one character in Resident Evil taught by the wizard Merlin. You can't. And while she is hyper-intelligent, her physical stats are underwhelming. Her best physical attribute would be her speed. She is able to keep up with the rest of the gang for the most part when running from threats. But that's where the positive ends. She's rather clumsy, frequently tripping and losing her glasses, and is no stronger than your average schoolgirl, which I guess makes sense considering that she technically is one. Her stats wind up to be Strength, 4, Dexterity, 3, Intelligence, 11, Speed, 5. I chose these 3 to represent Jill's playthrough because I felt their stats overall represented her better, with Velma's higher intelligence and Daphne's dexterity being very good, and Fred rounding out their weaker stats, though not by a major amount. They gave the vibe of someone physically capable to a moderate degree, and more suited to picking locks and solving puzzles rather than brute force and combat. Now, switching gears to our Chris counterparts, we'll start with Scooby-Doo's namesake, Scooby-Doo. Scoobert Doobert Doo is the core of Mystery Inc. He loves to eat, solve mysteries, and is a talking dog. And while Scooby is frequently portrayed as a coward, that's not actually the case, as when his friends are in danger, he toughs it out and saves the day. Not to mention what he'll do for a Scooby snack. In addition to being able to speak, he has also an impeccable sense of smell and incredible body control over his tail. He is also semi-capable of driving, and even by human standards is no dummy. Although most of his mystery-solving skill comes from his innate luck. Scooby is capable of running at very fast speeds, even while carrying a human being, and has tanked blows from some formidable opponents. Also, he was able to master the way of the samurai in like a day, maybe a week at most. I don't know, it's been a while since I've seen that movie. Also, he's been seen to perform sleight of hand and magic tricks on many occasions, all without opposable thumbs. His stats are as follows. Strength, 8. Dexterity, 8. Intelligence, 5. Speed, 9. And rounding out the members of Mystery Incorporated and our second Chris counterpart, we have Norville Shaggy Rogers. While Scooby is the core of the gang, he wouldn't be caught without his best friend, Shaggy, who shares many of the same traits. But while also frequently being portrayed as a coward, Shaggy has a lot more going for him. Shaggy is not just a jack of all trades, but an ace of all trades. His skill set includes the following: ventriloquism, throwing his voice, snowboarding at an Olympic level, driving both cars and motorcycles at the level of professional rock stars, disguise, gymnastics, impersonations, piloting a plane, zookeeping, and professional mini-golfing. Not to mention, he can literally run faster than Usain Bolt, seeing as he can keep up with Scooby's top pace. His physical feats are incredible as well. He has dispatched an entire biker gang nearly single-handedly, and if you think he could do that only under hypnosis, he also learned the way of the samurai in a very short amount of time with Scooby, plus he fought the Goblin King and won. His durability is no joke either, tanking many blows from Kane from WWE and other ridiculously strong monsters. And while he's definitely not stupid, he will often rely on the other members of the gang to solve the mysteries. But he has good survival instincts, with Matthew Lillard even claiming he would survive a Scream movie. Summing it up, his stats are as follows. Strength, 9. Dexterity, 9. Intelligence, 5. Speed, 9. Both Scooby and Shaggy are more physically inclined than the other three. Not to mention there's only 2 of them, meaning that they would have less inventory space between the 2 of them, just like Chris. And it would make more sense for them to start with the lighter rather than the lockpick, due to the underlying theme of them being stoners. Not only that, their lower intelligence matches up with Chris's more brute force style as well. Now, with our characters introduced and the stage set, let's begin with the game. Let's start with the Jill scenario. The first major threat they would encounter would be the opening cutscene. The game starts with the STARS team marching through the forest between the Spencer Mansion and Raccoon City, where they are promptly attacked by zombie dogs. As all 3 of them are decently used to running away from danger, they would easily be able to clear this. Even with Velma running into the risk of tripping, Scooby and Shaggy would be there to save her, just like Chris did with Jill. Once they enter the mansion, they realize that Shaggy and Scooby are missing, and that only Barry, Wesker, and the 3 of them are left, thus beginning the first actual playable part of the game. The whole situation, with finding Kenneth's body and returning to Wesker, is barely worth mentioning, as they can easily outrun a zombie and have Barry to take care of it for them. Then they would see Wesker is gone, and Barry would most likely give Daphne the lockpick, just like how he did with Jill. The trio would then have to find the arrowhead and unlock the crypt to get the sword key. This too would not be too difficult for them to accomplish, seeing as there's literally only one door that they can open at this point that would not be one step closer to the arrowhead, and that door is where the Floor 1 map is located, which would be an incredibly useful item for them. Naturally, they would search the mansion thoroughly and be easily able to find the map hidden in the vase of the statue if they entered that room. That room also contains a dagger, one of the 2 self-defense items available to them, although it'd be immediately wasted on the zombie that appears from picking it up. The only threats within this portion of the game would be the 3 zombies on the 2nd floor, 2 in the hallway and 1 in the balcony of the dining room. Following the rules I set, they would have access to a gun with enough ammo to take down at least 1 zombie, meaning that really they only need to dodge 2 zombies. But I feel like they would be able to dodge all 3 just fine, even without taking out one of them. As for finding the arrow and figuring out that the arrowhead is a key, no question. All three of them would be easily able to find the arrow as a clue and remove the arrowhead. There is 2 zombies in the outdoor graveyard area, though only one is an actual active threat, as unless they decide they want shotgun shells for no reason at this point, one of them will not aggro. The one that does aggro, though, is easy to dodge, at least while entering the crypt. This is a lot of information for the beginning of the game. Here, how about this? To save myself from endless repetition, just assume that if I don't mention an item or puzzle, it's because the 3 of them would easily find it or solve it. Capiche? Great. Moving on, it's safe to assume they would obtain the sword key and now have much more of the estate to explore. Now they have access to a plethora of items, and even more puzzles. The only immediately necessary item being the dog whistle. But very useful items like the shotgun, lighter, fuel canteen, herbs, ammo, daggers, and the second floor map are also now available. The main dangers in finding these items is mostly easily dodgeable or takedownable zombies, but there is some notable threats worth discussing. Starting with the famous shotgun trap. Since these 3 are replacing Jill, there is little risk since Barry can save them, but I think he wouldn't even have to. Fred would immediately figure out how the trap works, and either wait until they find the broken shotgun, or the 3 would MacGyver something to hold the switch down while they leave. The other notable trap within this section is the armor key room. Yeah, it pales in comparison to the shotgun trap. They clear it with no issue. As for items, they would absolutely notice and pick up the dog whistle, either as a clue or in an attempt to contact Scooby. As for the lighter, they are very useful in all situations. In fact, if Daphne had her purse on her, she probably would have already had one on hand. Another notable threat in this portion of the game is what I am deeming the dog hallway. This hallway has 2 dogs jump through the windows and attack you. Now, I have mentioned dogs earlier when they appeared in the opening cutscene, but I haven't explained what makes them so dangerous. Dogs, while fast, are pretty simple to kill with a few well-placed shots. What makes them formidable is the fact that they have an instant kill move, or at least an instant prone move that forces the player to use a dagger or another consumable to survive. This hallway killed me many times when playing, so much so that I essentially avoided it as much as possible throughout my playthroughs. But I am bad at video games, and Mystery Incorporated are rather capable. Plus, seeing as they would likely be carrying the shotgun at this point, they would be able to take them down without difficulty. Not to mention, if they are caught unaware, they would at least have 1 dagger or battery pack to save them. Or while one person is lying prone, another can get attack off to save them. Then, finally, we have the collared dog fight. This is the first of the necessary fights in the game, and it can be tricky. But seeing as you can just stand in the corner with a shotgun and do this, I think they'll be just fine. And even if they do take some injuries, there's literally a bunch of green herbs right next to them. With that fight over, they now have the means to get to the armor key, unlocking much more of the mansion, meaning that they can find all the death masks, the shield key, the grenade launcher, and the wind emblem. As for the puzzles relating to the death masks and wind emblem, they clear all of them. The only truly dangerous one for them would be the gas room, where you need to push the armor for the death mask. But honestly, the chances that they even get that puzzle wrong are incredibly low. The rest of the puzzles are laughable. The plant is a no-brainer, the bee is hardly worth mentioning, and the stained glass puzzle is not dangerous. It is also worth mentioning that the 3 of them would definitely start to have some idea with what's going on with Barry, especially after the wind emblem or bee puzzle. The grenade launcher is also rather simple for them to get, as a zombie versus a grenade launcher is an unfair fight. Or they literally could just outrun him. There is also plenty more daggers, ammo, and battery packs to find in this part of the game that they would have no problem acquiring. Saving Richard would be done quickly as well, since they would have the map and all want to help out anyone that they can, meaning that they would have Richard's help for the yawn fight. More on that later. As for the Moonlight Sonata puzzle, Daphne would be able to play it, and the trap related to it is harmless. Finding the shield key would be rather easy as well. The only thing left worth mentioning would be the blue gem and the tiger's eye puzzle. But yeah, they're solving that one as well. Now all they would need to do is place all 4 death masks in the crypt and... Wait, 4? I only mentioned the puzzles for 3 of them. That's right, there's a yawn boss fight to handle. This is the most dangerous threat the trio has had to face up to this point. But it's not actually as bad as it might seem on the surface. Yawn is big and slow, and is in a tight space where she can't move freely as she might want. But the cherry on top is that they have a grenade launcher and Richard to help them. Daphne and Fred would definitely be able to fight off Yawn, though Velma might be at some risk. Following the rules, Richard still dies, but hey, at least they get the assault shotgun. Plus, if one of them does get poisoned, most likely Velma, there's plenty of serum to go around. Of course, after using all 4 death masks on the coffin in the crypt, they would release the original Crimson Head. But let's be honest, if they can handle Yawn, they can handle a slightly stronger than normal Crimson Head. But this boss battle does bring up something I've been neglecting to mention, and that is the appearance of Crimson Heads in the mansion. There's at least one guaranteed encounter in the hallway to the armor key trap room. And if they didn't burn the zombies they took out as they went along, they would encounter more of them. While regular zombies pose very little threat to the trio, Crimson Heads are a different story. Crimson Heads are faster and presumably stronger, with long claws to gash you. While they do go down easy with a well-placed shotgun shot to the head, it would be more difficult for Fred, Velma, or Daphne to pull that off. The good news is that they would most certainly figure out quickly that the zombies they didn't decapitate were coming back, and then try to prevent more from appearing. And it's more likely for them to avoid most of the zombies in the first place, since the Mystery Gang is not a shoot first and ask questions later kind of group. Plus, zombies are slow and easily baitable, meaning it would make sense for them to not kill the zombies and conserve ammo. So it's likely there would be less Crimson Heads in general to deal with. There's also a distinct possibility of Velma figuring out that they could burn them to prevent the mutation, from context clues and educated guessing. All in all, while the Crimson Heads certainly pose a risk, the gang would most likely be fine, and only take minor damage from them, if any. With the original Crimson Head defeated, the trio now has the door leading to the residence open to them, though they will have to survive a surprise dog attack before they can open the door. But one dog by itself shouldn't be too much of a threat to them, even if they wasted all their shotgun ammo on Crimson Heads. This seems like a good stopping point for our trio, so let's switch back to Shaggy and Scooby's run and see how this portion of the game would go for them. The opening cutscene of the game is the same, with all of them running away from the zombie dogs, but it all changes when they find themselves in the mansion. This time, the entire gang and Wesker is in the mansion to start. It's not until Shaggy and Scooby find the zombie eating Kenneth that they'll discover that everyone has suddenly disappeared. The Arrowhead portion of the mansion would play out pretty much exactly the same as with the trio, with the exception of maybe the Floor 1 map. Shaggy and Scooby would undoubtedly be terrified and run from or dodge all the zombies with ease. As for the Arrow, with their sheer dumb luck, it would get caught on Shaggy's shirt or Scooby's collar while they're running away. Once they acquire the sword key is where things begin to differ for the two groups. As Shaggy and Scooby do not have the lockpick, and neither of them are capable of doing so, they would need to find the old keys in and around the mansion. Scooby and Shaggy are not the best investigators within Mystery Incorporated, but they are no slouches when it comes to finding clues, and especially hidden passages. But keys and other small required items would be much harder to find. At least the keys are in fairly obvious spots, but the same cannot be said for daggers and flash grenades. With Velma, Fred, and Daphne, it's safe to assume that they would find every item and ammo and such throughout the mansion, having a good stockpile of things they might need. Shaggy and Scooby would most likely not have that luxury. The dog whistle, shotgun, wooden crest, and fuel canteen are also all in fairly obvious places, so I have no doubts they'd be able to find them easily. But everything else would be much less likely for them to find. Not to say that they wouldn't find anything else, just less than the trio. As for traps in this section of the game, the only one that would really threaten them is, again, the shotgun trap. Scooby and Shaggy do not have the luxury of Barry to come and save them if the ceiling comes down to crush them. And they do have a history for setting off traps, or at least getting caught in Fred's. But I see 3 ways they could beat this trap. 1, they could have left the door open after grabbing the shotgun, giving them time to jump back into the room before the ceiling crushes them. Or 2, only one of them gets caught in the trap, and the other, like Barry, blows the lock off the door with the newly acquired shotgun. Or 3, they find the broken shotgun before the actual shotgun, since it is in a more familiar part of the mansion. and they would very likely find the old key in the kitchen to be able to enter the broken shotgun room, as the kitchen is the one room they have to investigate every time, no matter what the mystery is. Another reasonable situation is that they wouldn't even take the shotgun in the first place, not wanting to fight anything. As for the colored dog fight, if they find the dog whistle, they'll find the note talking about where to use it, and the two of them would have no issue taking down the two zombie dogs. They would probably panic before dodging all the dog's attacks until Shaggy slips and breaks the collar off the dog's neck. They might not have to even kill either one, opting to take the collar inside with them before the dogs can attack again. Shaggy and Scooby would have no trouble saving Richard either. They might need some help with directions from Rebecca, but running and grabbing things is one of their specialities. And now they have the extra boost of Rebecca being able to heal them if they do manage to get injured, which is rather unlikely to me. As for the Moonlight Sonata puzzle, it would be a breeze for them as well, seeing as the music score is in a secret part of the room beyond Richard, and secret rooms are one of the things they do find quite often. As for playing it, Shaggy probably knows how to play the piano to some extent, since him and Scooby are able to rock out at a high level. But even if that's not the case, Rebecca can play it after a bit of practice. Getting the shield key might take a while, but honestly, it's not that hard of a puzzle. Same with the death masks. The only puzzle that could be even a danger to them is the gas armor room, but again, they have Rebecca to heal them. But the wind emblem puzzle does pose a different challenge than danger. It's not technically a required puzzle, and is, in my opinion, the most difficult one in this part of the game. But I'm gonna go ahead and give them the benefit of the doubt, considering the bug and fishing lure displays are busted open, and there is a fairly obvious switch on the bug display. As for the yawn fight, again, it wouldn't even be a fight. The two of them would just dip in, grab the mask, and dip out. Yawn is nowhere near agile enough to catch them. The Crimson Head boss fight would be the first one that they would actually have to 100% fight an enemy. Up until this point, Shaggy and Scooby are far too fast and strong to need to fight any of the monsters they've encountered, except for maybe the colored dog fight. And knowing their cowardly nature, they would not have used nearly any ammo or daggers or flash grenades. Even if they didn't find as many as the trio did, they would probably have similar amounts of resources by the time they got to this boss fight. And because of their dodging skills, Shaggy and Scooby would be even less likely to have encountered more than the one Crimson Head in the hallway by the dining room balcony. And while Crimson Heads are more threatening, they still aren't quick enough to make a significant problem for them. So as long as Shaggy and Scooby overcome their fears and face the original Crimson Head with what they have, even if it's without the shotgun, I don't see them losing this fight. With that out of the way, we're now all caught up to where we left off with Fred, Daphne, and Velma. But we'll get back to them. For now, let's continue with Shaggy and Scooby's route. After disposing of the first Crimson Head, Shaggy and Scooby now have access to the outdoors, where they can walk all the way to a pool that requires a crank to go any further, or a creepy abandoned cabin out in the woods. Two prime tourist destinations that I'm sure any resident of Raccoon City would be dying to go to. Sarcasm aside, they now have access to the Magnum as well. The only real danger they could face on their route to get it would be the crows. But if Chris and Jill can tank the crows pecking at them, then so can they. Or they might try and get it later, when there's only zombies guarding the tomb. In order for them to progress to the next section of the game, though, they will have to find the crank located in the creepy cabin I mentioned earlier. Again, they only really have to deal with one threat, and that is Lisa Trevor. Lisa is a very tanky mutated human, one who is constantly looking for her mother, who has been locked away in a stone sarcophagus. Neither Shaggy nor Scooby would be able to do any damage to her even if they wanted to, but she is very slow, and honestly doesn't even do that much damage. In the game, after you obtain the crank and try to leave the cabin, a short cutscene plays where Chris is knocked out by Lisa, and wakes up lying on the floor. I have no idea why she doesn't just kill him right then and there, but I guess she thought he needed a nap. Anyways, because this is a scripted event within the game, as per the rules, this must happen to Shaggy and Scooby as well, even though I feel like they could probably dodge it and escape. As for puzzles within this section, the only tricky one might be the dog statue puzzle, but I managed to solve it on my first playthrough, even though I had no idea how it actually worked. I suppose the Magnum is technically locked behind a puzzle, but it's really not worth mentioning. Now, with crank in hand, they can open the way to the courtyard through the pool, which leads to the residence. On their way there, unfortunately, they do have to deal with some bothersome threats. The first being 3 zombie dogs waiting in a courtyard, with an elevator in one direction and a gate in another. This encounter would be a bit trickier, as all the dogs they've had to face have been in narrow corridors or at one at a time. With there being 3 of them in a fairly wide open area, Shaggy and Scooby are going to have a harder time dealing with all of them. But they shouldn't have too much of an issue taking them down, since there is a narrow pathway to funnel them towards. Or they could take them out in the open, I guess. Or it's possible they could just run by them, though I find that more unlikely to pull off. The next threat are venomous snakes that can literally drop out of the ceiling on top of you. Honestly, the 2 of them can probably just dodge all of them fine. But even if they didn't, there is plenty of blue herb to go around in this area, so it's a moot point anyways. Also, I technically skipped over a courtyard with crows. And there's also a suspiciously placed waterfall there. Again, the crows are barely a threat. So, with them running past all their problems, Shaggy and Scooby have finally arrived at the residence portion of the game. That's right, because a mansion isn't a residence, I guess. Actually, what is a residence? Huh. So the mansion is a residence. So it's a guest house, I guess. But why don't they call it that? Is it because this is where the evil residents are? Wait. I'm getting sidetracked. Anyways, the residence is where we start to meet some more fearsome foes than just zombies and dogs. To go alongside it comes some trickier puzzles within its walls as well. The first threat being spiders. Giant spiders, in fact. While facing a giant spider would be terrifying to Shaggy and Scooby, spiders are super easy to deal with. They are slow, have a huge wind-up to all their attacks, and don't even have that much health. The parlor room is the first room they would encounter these spiders in, and there are a couple necessary items within. But thankfully for Shaggy and Scooby, the red book is placed very obviously on the bar counter. As for the oil lamp puzzles, Shaggy and Scooby would have most likely saved Richard with Rebecca's help, so they don't need to solve that puzzle. Which is good, as I don't think they would be able to do so intuitively. The next steps within the residence are essentially finding keys to get more keys to unlock the doors you see around you. Thankfully, all of the keys are in fairly obvious places, or intuitive hiding spots. There isn't really any notable puzzles besides the lamp puzzle, which, again, they don't need to solve, and the control room pressure puzzle. As for threats, other than what we've seen, we now have the Plant 42 in one specific hallway. Sharks, and, of course, bees. The Plant 42 hallway can be avoided by pushing boxes over the holes, something Shaggy and Scooby can and would do after getting grabbed once. The bees are annoying but manageable, especially with Shaggy and Scooby's speed, and the sharks would be lucky if they even get a whiff of their clothes before they're on the other side of the room. And finding the secret passage to the Aqua Ring is again within their skill set, although this does mean that the 2 of them will see Richard die in front of them. Something that would very much affect them. If they hadn't resolved to fight back more during the Crimson Head fight, then this would absolutely trigger something in them. As for the pressure puzzle in the control room, they have plenty of time to solve that. I struggled a bit with it on my first time playing the game, and I still survived with a safe amount of percentage left. And most of my struggle was with the tank controls and figuring out which parts were interactable, something that Shaggy and Scooby would not have to worry about. There's even clear directions written on the whiteboard in the room for them. That leads us to the Neptune boss fight, which isn't even a boss fight at all. All you do is push a machine into the water and then switch a lever. Not exactly rocket science. Now the only threats left are the bees, and they're pretty easy to get rid of once they've gotten the insecticide. Then we have the Plant 42 fight. This is the most difficult fight Shaggy and Scooby have faced so far. But the overgrown menace has no chance. Shaggy and Scooby would have the resolve to fight now, unlocking their latent combat abilities that allowed them to fight Demon Samurai and the Goblin King, armed with an upgraded shotgun and most likely a Magnum revolver as well. Dodging vines and acidic, spit? What is plant spit called? Nectar? I'm going with spit. Anyway, dodging it is no problem, especially with the 2 of them going at it. With Plant 42 going down, the 2 of them now have access to the helmet key and the rest of the mansion. Almost. As Scooby and Shaggy head back towards the mansion, let's switch back to Fred, Velma, and Daphne. They too will have to go through the same threats of the residence section of the game, but first they need to make it there in the first place. Let's start with the cabin. While Shaggy and Scooby could just speed blitz through everything in their path, The three of them will have to take a more slow and methodical approach. They most likely would still be able to grab the Magnum on the first pass to the cabin, as the puzzle is quick and there's three of them to tank more damage from the crows. Finding the crank would be a simple task as well. Now, Lisa is a slightly different story. Shaggy and Scooby are excellent at dodging and running away, but Velma has a tendency to be rather clumsy, and Daphne is rather prone to surprise attacks, meaning Fred would really have to step up and distract Lisa while the three of them escaped. But it shouldn't be too much of an issue in this portion of the game. Now we run into another issue that Shaggy and Scooby had a little trouble with, and that is the dog courtyard. The trio's almost guaranteed to have at least one of them get injured here, with there being as many dogs as there is them. Which is unfortunate, but in reality, not that big a deal, as there's plenty of herbs to be found. Plus, they now have an assault shotgun that can make quick work of the dogs. Ammo shouldn't be a problem either, considering how resourceful the three of them are. As for the snakes afterward, that's a little bit more dangerous for them. To be frank, I find it less likely that one of them doesn't get poisoned by the snakes. I think it's even likely that two of them would. But thankfully, there's plenty of blue herbs right after this, so all it would really do is make them waste some health items. I'm fairly certain they'd be able to get through here, but only after some hardship. Which finally brings us to the actual residence portion once again. There's not much difference from what they have to do and what Shaggy and Scooby had to deal with. It's all the exact same threats, with the exception of the Plant 42 boss fight. The spiders, again, are really easy to deal with. Just have a few good aimed shots with a pistol, and they go down no problem. The lamp puzzle could and would be solved both by Fred and Velma. The Plant 42 vine in the hallway again gets neutralized by the almighty box, and there is enough green and red herbs to go around to deal with any bee-related injury. And while getting to the secret passage heading to the Aqua Ring, the three of them would likely have entirely figured out Barry by now, but they wouldn't know that it was Wesker behind it all yet. Speaking of the Aqua Ring, while Shaggy and Scooby had little to no problem with the sharks, the three of them would have a much harder time. They no longer have a Richard to die and warn them of the imminent danger of the sharks, and they're not as fast as the two of them either. Still, I think they'll be fine, as if at this point they weren't on edge looking for danger lurking in every room, they'd be foolhardy. With all three of them keeping an eye out for sharks that seem to be getting a little too close to them, Daphne would have no problem shooting at them with the pistol to chase them away. As for the boss fight, or pressure puzzle, there's no reason to even address those. They clear those first try, no question. Now here is where the trio's path diverges from Scooby and Shaggy's, as in Jill's route, she has access to the creation of V-Jolt. With Velma there, it's unquestionable whether or not they'd be able to solve the lamp puzzle to unlock the door in the lab, and the recipe for V-Jolt is literally written on the wall. With this, they'd be able to travel back to the now-drained Aqua Ring and supply those thirsty roots with some sweet, sweet plant poison. This means that they don't even have to fight Plant 42, as if you gave it V-Jolt, Barry comes in and uses a flamethrower to take it down for you, meaning that the three of them now too have access to the helmet key, and most of the mansion. But first, they need to get back there. The route back to the main mansion is not exactly a perilous one, but when they do get back, there's a new threat ready to give them trouble. Hunters. Hunters are likely the most dangerous BOW they'll have to face in the mansion besides the boss fights. Hunters are similar mechanically to dogs, but on steroids. They're far stronger than Crimson Heads and faster than the dogs, with plenty of health to tank precious ammo. And of course, the dreaded instant kill move. Fred, Daphne, and Velma will have little choice but to fight these things whenever they appear. On top of this first encounter is an ambush of sorts. Adversely, there's only one of them attacking, meaning that it would jump one of them and leave itself wide open for a solid shotgun, magnum, or grenade blast to the face. With the hunter taken care of, the three of them now have a plethora of different things they could do. The key ones being the red and yellow gem puzzle, finding the jewelry box, obtaining the wolf and eagle emblems, the 1 MO disc, and the final yawn battle. The only real threats to them in this portion of the game would be the hunters and the yawn boss battle. None of the puzzles are particularly difficult, and just one regular zombie guarding the jewelry box? Yeah, right. The wall closing in on you while you push the statue trap is kinda neutralized when there is more than one person in the room, as one could be on the switch while the other is pushing the statue. So, addressing the two threats I mentioned, the hunters wouldn't be too terrible to take down. It would just waste their ammo. And don't get me wrong, that could be vital to them later on, but I'm not too concerned about it. And then we have the final Yawn boss fight. This one is a little bit tougher on them, as they have no Richard to help them. Not to mention, Yawn now has much more room to move around and strike easier. But the gang now has much better firepower, with acid rounds, the magnum, and assault shotgun all within their repertoire. And although while there's more room for Yawn to navigate easier, there is now more room for the three of them to dodge her attacks as well. They would be able to handle Yawn with little issue. One of them might get poisoned, but as before, there should be plenty of serum or blue herbs within quick reach. With all these puzzles solved and items gotten, the trio would now have access to the basement, where they can access an elevator and have an extra route to the courtyard beyond the pool, meaning they now have access to behind the suspiciously placed waterfall. And behind this waterfall are some rather treacherous encounters. The first is Enrico's death, at which point at least Velma will have probably realized that Wesker is behind all this. More importantly, they now have 3 hunters to deal with. Thankfully, not all at the same time though, so they should be okay. It's very unlikely they even have to waste a dagger or battery pack from getting sneak attacked, as they would be on high alert from a man dying in front of them. Unlike someone...
Traitor? Who?
The next obvious threat would be the boulder traps. Quite frankly, I just said that they were a threat, but they have the one and only Fred Jones. He would easily see that the boulder is ready to crush them at a moment's notice, and get everyone to safety before triggering any of them. But this brings us to the Black Tiger fight. Black Tiger is a giant spider who I presume is the mother of all the giant spiders walking around the area, and although looking rather threatening, would stand a 0 chance against a close-range barrage of flame rounds, shotgun shells, and possible magnum rounds. Then the trio would have to solve some simple puzzles and find the metal frame in Lisa's room while avoiding her and the poisonous snakes in the water. Easy. Not really. Well, at least avoiding the snakes wouldn't be. Lisa is still slow and rather noisy, making her easy to avoid even for the 3 of them. But outrunning, or I guess outswimming venomous snakes, that's a different story. I would say at least 1, if not 2 of them would get bitten. But luckily for them, there's plenty of blue herb to go around immediately after the Black Tiger fight, which they would have been able to pick up. With frame in hand, this means that Fred, Daphne, and Velma can now enter the Lisa boss fight, which, in similar fashion to the Neptune fight, would be a breeze for them. There is 3 of them and 4 stones to push, meaning they'd be at least twice as fast as Jill was in this situation. The only important thing to mention in this boss fight is what their choice would be in regards to Barry. Naturally, the 3 of them, or at least Velma, would have figured out that they can actually trust Barry with their backs in this fight, choosing to give him his gun back. This actually works out even better for them, since Lisa would now be focused on Barry, giving them more room to shove the stones off the cliff to open the coffin. Now, all the trio has to do is use the Wolf and Eagle medallions and enter the quintessential Resident Evil lab portion of the game. But before they do that, let's get back to how Shaggy and Scooby would fare in this section of the game. Just to remind you, the duo now has the helmet key and access to a slew of items and puzzles now available to them. The red and yellow gem puzzle shouldn't be too difficult to figure out, plus there is 2 of them, making the mechanic essentially irrelevant. And finding the jewelry box for the red gem is also not an issue. The Yawn fight shouldn't be an issue for them either, as overall they're better combatants than Fred, Daphne, and Velma. And the Wolf and Eagle medals are in fairly plain sight. The one major difference between Shaggy and Scooby's stint through this section is after they get the emblem key from the jewelry box, as after you enter the emblem office, a cutscene plays, where Rebecca screams. If you don't make it to the dog whistle office above you in time, you'll find Rebecca killed by a hunter. Fortunately for Rebecca, Shaggy and Scooby would absolutely be rushing to help her, especially after not being able to save Richard, and taking care of one hunter would be very easy for them to handle. Again, the wall-crushing statue trap is essentially neutralized with 2 people in there. As for the tunnels, they'll naturally get front row seats to Enrico's death per the rules, and then they get the joy of facing the boulder traps as well. But the boulder traps aren't that bad considering their speed. The Black Tiger fight is easy for them considering they have a flamethrower and an assault shotgun. The hunters, again, are not going to be much of a threat when there's only at most 2 of them in a room. None of the puzzles in this part are particularly difficult for them to figure out either. I mean, the cylinder literally has the numbers written on it, so they should be able to make it to the Lisa boss fight with ease. Also, they'd have no trouble dodging Lisa in the broken flamethrower room either. As for the Lisa quote-unquote fight, I foresee no issues coming up. Wesker will be there to help them and distract Lisa while Shaggy and Scooby can make quick work of the boulders holding the coffin shut. Although Scooby and Shaggy will have no idea that Wesker is the traitor at this point, unlike the trio. Wow, that was quick. But we've now caught up to where we left off with Fred and the girls. There's not much difference in what happens during the lab portion of the game, the key parts that are different being the interactions between the player and Wesker. So let's go through the lab with both groups at the same time. The first puzzle available to them would be the X-ray room. While the trio would have no problem solving it, Shaggy and Scooby might take a little while. But with the note left by John, they'll know it's related to the X-rays somehow, so I think they could manage. In the room that they've now just unlocked, they'll find the first place you can use an MO disc. Fred, Daphne, and Velma would 100% have found the MO disc in the Tiger Head room, meaning they'll for sure be able to find Shaggy and Scooby locked in their cell behind the triple locked door. Shaggy and Scooby, on the other hand, might not. I give it about a 5 to 10% chance that they missed it, but seeing as they had to use the red gem to get to this point, they probably have found what they had to use the yellow and blue gem on. My best theory would be that they found the tiger statue room while hiding from zombies early on, and would realize that the blue gem fit into one of the eyes after reading the inscriptions. But if they never found the blue gem, then it's still equally likely for them to realize it after getting the yellow gem, which is the one you need to access the MO disc. Anyways, where was I? Oh yes, there's also the slide filter that they would need to get the code for the wall keypad. I have no doubt either group will have any difficulty in solving that puzzle and obtaining the lab key. But with entering the lab, they now have a new and dangerous enemy to deal with, that being the Chimera. Chimeras are fast, strong, and tanky, a scary threat to the trio. Luckily for them, despite the great number of chimeras in the lab, you really only encounter them 1 or 2 at a time. And while their giant leg claw things look scary, they do not have an instant kill move like the dogs and hunters. So Fred and the girls would make it out okay from the encounters, though they might have to use some first aid spray. As for Shaggy and Scooby, yeah, no, they're not going to struggle with them. Just a few well-placed shotgun shells to the head should put them to sleep, or magnum rounds will do too. And while you might think that Shaggy and Scooby might not find the MO disc in the refrigerator room, it's only tricky for players to find due to camera angles. The duo would literally see it right in front of them through the shelves. The next challenge the gang would undertake would be the exploding fuel canister. The trio would have no problem with this, as they would probably go through and methodically map out a route and clear out any danger before moving it, while the duo would be fine if one carried the canister and the other took vanguard. Now we come to the Tyrant boss fight. Fred, Daphne, and Velma would arrive having already convinced Barry to help them and expose Wesker, to which he would respond by releasing the Tyrant and it getting a wombo combo by walloping Wesker and Barry. While for Scooby and Shaggy, they would then learn that Wesker is the traitor, where he promptly puts Rebecca out of commission. And then, just like Chris, they'll mock him for his goal before watching him turn into a shish kebab. The fight itself is going to be very dangerous for the trio. I have confidence in Shaggy and Scooby's attack power and dodging prowess, even within the small confines of the room. But the trio would most likely take at least one hit from the big boy. I do think that they'd be able to kill it just fine, especially with all 3 of them firing at it, but one of them is definitely going to be in the same state or worse than Barry. In Shaggy and Scooby's route, they now get to wake up Rebecca and access the computer to get out of there, before the entire place self-destructs, of course. Now they have 3 minutes to get up to the helipad and release the trio. While in Fred and the girls' route, they get to wake up Barry, and just like the duo, they access the computer and get out of there, also having 3 minutes to rescue Shaggy and Scooby before the place blows. In both situations, they would have no problem finding the fuse sitting literally in the middle of the hallway. Then they would get up to the top where the helipad is and set off the signal rockets, thus triggering the second and final Tyrant fight, which, to be completely honest, is much easier than the first one, since you now have either Rebecca or Barry helping you, plus the whole gang's back together. And it is a far more open area than inside the cramped lab, meaning it's just an easy rocket launcher hit away from sweet, sweet freedom. And there we have it. As you can see, I have high expectations on how Mystery Inc. would fare against the events of Resident Evil 1. It would be a harrowing event for all the members, but it's likely they make it out alive. Fred, Daphne, and Velma would for sure get the best ending, and while Scooby and Shaggy might have missed some things here and there, I believe they'd be able to pull it off too. And hey, Wesker might have been able to get away with his evil scheme, if it weren't for those meddling kids. Thanks for watching.